Welcome back to Game 4 of Virginia versus Minnesota. If you've missed the first three games, Minnesota is currently down 0-3, which means this is a potential elimination match. If Minnesota loses, they will be out of the tournament. Minnesota will have to go on a 4-game run in order to eliminate Virginia. For today's game, we have the fourth starting pitcher for each team. As the starter for Virginia, we have Dark Yellington, who is a C-plus starting pitcher. In the regular season, Dark Yellington went 6 wins to 6 losses with a 5.11 ERA. He will be going up against Pitt Lansley of Minnesota. Pitt Lansley is a C starting pitcher. In the regular season, he went 1 win to 2 losses with a 4.97 ERA. So very similar ERAs. And going into this matchup, Virginia will have a slight pitching advantage. So we'll see if Virginia can go ahead and close out this series in 4. And let's go ahead and hop in. Here we go. It is interesting to note here, Mendoza is extremely lowered on the mojo, plus slightly injured. So we'll see if that plays into this game at all, as Norton for Virginia will be starting us off. Pitt Lansley here does have that K-Dud negative trait, so we'll see if that comes into play, and Virginia will start things off with a nice hit. It will be held to a single here. Legend Leverage stepping up. Leverage has struggled a little bit so far in this series, but we will see what happens. As a reminder, since this is the fourth starting pitcher for each team, it's going to be their weakest starting pitcher, which means we typically expect a relatively higher scoring game here, and that is a beautifully hit ball, rolls right into that right corner. Lamb throws it in. But Virginia will start things off with a player on second and third. 0 outs, and Blevins stepping up. Blevins, their S-rated first baseman, pops that one high. Virginia needs to be careful, head back to third and second, and they do. Shipwright, their designated hitter, is now stepping up with 2 players in scoring position. Virginia is looking to get an early lead. Hits that one foul. I really like how this stadium looks at night. I really like this lighting and overall color scheme we have going here. And that is a strike out there by Lansley. As Lansley is going to look to close out this inning without allowing a run. Craig already has 4 RBIs so far in this series. Looking at 2 strikes already, though. Fouls that one back. That was high. He gets under that one. Will it land in bounds? It drifts just foul. That had been about 3 feet more to the left, and he ends up striking out. That is actually a huge close to that inning for Minnesota. Minnesota, again, not a high-scoring team, so them not falling behind early is going to be key for them to start turning around this series. Yellington starts out with a big hit. Does it have the distance? It does not. Craig catches it there on the warning track. Love Atkins, so far struggling in this series. Let's see if she can get anything going. Grounder. That will be a quick out, too. Derek Doctor steps in. He does have the increased mojo. Gets under that one. That is caught by Leverage, though. What a beautiful quick inning there from Virginia. Let me take a quick look here. Virginia, Leverage. Leverage does have a 64 speed, which is actually 3rd highest on that team, so Anybody else had to track that down there in left field that might have landed. Another one hit foul. And that is a strikeout to start the second inning. AyyScare steps up. 7th in the batting order. Third baseman. Currently batting at 200 in the first 3 games. Gets into that one. That one will land. Whitney gets it into second. So that holds Virginia on first. With Tucker Ortiz stepping up. Tucker Ortiz does not have the best of power bars. The center fielder actually hit 0 home runs in the regular season. It's tipped basically straight down. And that is out too. So here we go. Mendoza lowered mojo, actually very lowered mojo. Also not 100% on the fitness. So the contact and the speed bars are almost non-existent. But she gets a great hit. What are the chances? That's also going to roll slowly to the wall. I don't know if Whitney has the arm for this. No. Virginia's going to go ahead and score off of this. And what I thought might be a potential problem for Virginia ended up working out in their favor significantly. Virginia now with a 1-run lead. Norton 2 strikes already. Pops that one up. That should be caught here. And it is. Nelson is able to field it. Minnesota, as a reminder, in case you missed the earlier matchups here, Minnesota did not score a run in game 1 or 2 of this series. So for them, any points that they need to crawl back from are going to be a potential problem. Reed fields that one over to Blevins. And that is out 1. Sailor McCarty, currently batting at 300, and gets a nice lift on that one. It drifts into that left corner. Leverage gets to it, but that will result in a double. Whitney now stepping up. Has a pretty decent batting average. That actually might be the best batting average for Minnesota in this series so far. Ellington is only on pitch 12 here. And that was a way early swing. Victor Intense steps up. 2 outs, but a player on second. So he is hoping to be able to get something to get this to be a tie game early so that Minnesota has a little bit of stress off of their shoulders. Full count, 2 outs, here we go. And that is a walk. Genevieve Powers is now stepping up. Genevieve Powers, I think, has the only home run in all 3 RBIs for Minnesota, but she grounds out. And Virginia gets into the 3rd inning now, keeping their 1-run lead, and they're going to look to add to it here. Leverage already has a double today. Nice hit, and that is going to go out to Lamb in right field. And Virginia starts off the 3rd inning with a player on first. Blevins S-rated. Always terrifying to see at the plate. Right now has that hired mojo as locked in as well. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And she gets struck out. That actually lowered her mojo as well. If Minnesota's going to come back in this, lowering mojos on some of these players will be a key part of the strategy. That ball gets popped up. It should be caught here. Lamb in right field. She does catch it. Virginia is still held on first. Ball gets hit foul. Oh, Nelson was able to field that directly. That was a beautiful catch. Minnesota starting off here with Camille Lamb. Only one hit so far in this series. She does have a nice speed bar though, so if she is able to get on, that opens the door for a lot of things like stealing potential, which could play in big, especially if we're looking at a close game. Lamb has a lift for negative trait. That ball is popped up and that should land. It does. It lands in front of Leverage in left field. And Minnesota will start off the inning by getting a player on first. Nelson, their first baseman, now steps up. He has struggled so far. This is big. This is a potential elimination match for Minnesota. Almost gets hit by that pitch. Slow grounder. Yellington's going to get it over to second and then over to first, and that is a double play. It's interesting that Love Atkins has struggled so much in even the regular season. I think that her stats were pretty poor. Let me go look at that real quick again. Yes, so Love Atkins in the regular season, she actually gets a nice hit there past the third baseman. In the regular season, though, despite her bars, she hit 0 home runs and only had 10 RBIs. And it's not that she was majorly injured, because she played in 77 of the 80 games. So, really not sure what's going on with Love Atkins. That ball had a nice power run rip, but trips foul. That ball, Levens fields it right along the line. We are into the fourth inning. Lincoln Chung here has a very nice speed bar, so if he's able to get one, similar to the beginning of bottom of the third, this could give Virginia very good stealing potential. It's tipped foul. That ball has some power behind it. Is it out of the park, though? No, Whitney fields it off the wall. If that had been about a foot higher, it would have been out or potentially jumped for. Reed now steps up, 0 outs, player on second with a very nice speed bar. Powers to go over to first. That does put Virginia with a player on third, though. Only 1 out so far. Tucker Ortiz watches the first pitch. Hits that one foul. Ortiz gets struck out, and he just had a lowered mojo, so that's at least the second batter for Virginia, where we've seen a lowered mojo already this game. Now Mendoza here actually, her mojo is still lower than average, but it's not as bad as it was at the beginning of the game. Already looking at 2 strikes. Ball just high. Ball gets popped foul. Oh, that one had some nice air under it, but goes foul as well. 3 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. And she watches the pitch. So Minnesota, this is the kind of game where they are going to be the best at potentially getting back into this. They've limited Virginia to only 1 run. Virginia has 6 hits. So Minnesota just needs to start getting some points on the board, which they've really struggled with in this series. That ball gets hit. That should be catchable. And it is caught by Craig in right field. Sailor McCarty, stepping up, has a slightly higher mojo. She's going to pop up, and that should be caught by the second baseman here. And it is. That is Norton. Yellington, this will be pitch 44, which is the bottom of the fourth. That is a very decent pitch count. That ball is hit, but it's going to drift foul. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And then he gets struck out. Virginia is going to be starting things off here with the top of their batting order. So their second baseman, Norton, will be leading them off. He does have that contact first right-handed pitcher positive trait. So you can see his contact bar is up, and he hits that one, Powers fields it, out 1. Leverage, so far having a great game, had a double and a single so far. Swings at pitch 2. That ball gets hit up the middle. Whitney gets it in center field. Virginia with a player on again, though. Levens is now stepping up. She had an incredible game 1 and has been decent throughout this series. But her game 1 performance was just absolutely MVP level. Nelson going for the double play here, and they do get it. Wow. Minnesota just needs to get some darn points on the board. I mean, this is the type of game that Minnesota needs to start this reversal of this series. And so far, they're just unable to get anything going. Grounder to Reed. Out 1. Genevieve Powers. This is a great player for Minnesota. Type of player that could definitely start turning the tides. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Here we go. And she gets struck out. So Yellington, here will be pitch 57. So he is on pace here to have a very, very solid starting pitching performance. And that is another strikeout. Yellington is just having a incredible performance so far. Ward Shipwright will be leading off for Virginia here. Hensley is already up at pitch 83. The ball is hit, but it's going to drift foul. Will it be catchable, though? It is. Cano is able to get out 1. One thing to keep in mind, Minnesota brought in their 2 best relief pitchers last game. So Lansley will be followed up by probably a C- relief pitcher, unless they bring in their other pitchers on low stamina. Let's see, that was a very inside pitch. 2 balls, 1 strike. There's another one low. And that ball is hit perfectly. That should result in a double here, though it takes a very nice bounce. Whitney does not have the arm, and that's going to actually result in a triple. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And that is going to put Reed up, the player on third. She just needs a nice hit here to extend Virginia's lead. Hensley is going to pitch 96. Powers fields it. And Minnesota gets out of the 6th inning, still only down 1 run on 8 hits. So, again, this is the exact kind of inning, or the game that Minnesota needs. And that ball has a nice power under it, but goes foul. Nelson, Norton fields it. Ellington only a pitch 65. So about 30 pitches below Lance Lorena. And he gets us quick strikeout. Derek Doctor is now stepping up with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 6th. Three balls, 1 strike. And that was considered a ball that looked like a strike to me, but that is going to result in a walked batter. So Minnesota, Cano now stepping up. And gets a nice hit. It's going to go past the second baseman. Minnesota now with 2 on. Sailor McCarty, who has batted a .333 average so far. So a great player to have up for Minnesota as they look to get back in. And that ball is hit deep. Does it have the distance? It does. It just makes it over the wall. I'm surprised that they didn't jump for that. But what a beautiful hit, and what a huge moment here for Minnesota. Minnesota, that is the exact kind of play that they needed to potentially crawl back into this. Minnesota, again, need to go on a 4-game win streak to eliminate Virginia, but that could be the play that turns the tide of this series. Virginia now in a position that I don't think they've been in. They are actually going to be playing from behind. I'm pretty sure that they've either always been leading or up in this series. Last game, I think when Minnesota hit their 3-run home run last game, it tied the game. So Virginia, in an unknowing situation, as their first time down in this tournament, and they strike out with their first batter up. Mendoza got 2 strikes to start and then a ball. Just inside. That ball is hit slowly. Powers will get over there. And another lowered mojo for Virginia. Norton hits one directly into Doctor. Wow, what a change that 6th inning made. This is now Minnesota looking to extend their lead and get their first game off of Virginia. And despite allowing that 3-run home run last inning, Ellington is having a great pitching performance, especially as their 4th string starting pitcher. That ball is slowly hit. Levens will field it and gets on to first herself. Genevieve Powers now steps up. Two balls, 2 strikes. And that ball is beautifully hit. That's going to drift into the gap, make it out to the wall. It dies at the wall. Ortiz doesn't have a great arm either. But Minnesota now with the player on second, and they only have 1 out. So Virginia's now going to bring in their player, and let's see. That is a dangerous steal, but they get it. So Minnesota is going to play this a little bit risky as they want to extend their lead, but they strike out. Nelson does have that negative RBI dud trait, and he'll be going up here against Blacksmith, who is an absolutely rock star relief pitcher for Virginia. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. And that will be out 3. Blacksmith comes in with a beautiful couple of pitches. So Virginia with 2 innings left. They have to get at least 2 runs on the board. Legend Leverage has had a great game today. He's a perfect player to start off their inning. And he swings on that one, and that will be out 1. Blevins 0 for 3 today. Starts things off with 2 balls. Hits that one foul. That ball gets hit, but drifts foul over that third base line. And that will be a walk. And Blevins is not a player that you want to walk in the regular season. She successfully stole 21 times and only got caught 4 times. You can see Minnesota is expecting her to take off. Shipwright, that ball is massively hit though, and that just tied up the game. That is devastating. A beautiful 451-foot home run by Shipwright. And now we're looking at a tied game. Rodney Craig will be stepping up with 1 out in this inning. Slow grounder. McCarty fields it. Out 2. Chung has had a great game so far, a double and a triple. He had some nice contact on that one, but it drifts foul. Straining so far here, struggling a bit. He is a C- relief pitcher. But again, Minnesota used their better relief pitchers last game, which puts them in a hard situation now that this is a tied game in the bottom of the 8th. Blacksmith has been lights out every time that he's come in this series. It's also worth noting in the regular season, he had a .96 whip score, which was tied for best in the entire tournament. He also has that positive composed traits. That accuracy bar is, 120%, or however that works. And that ball looks a little bit inside to me, but it is called strike 3. Derek Doctor starts things off here with 3 balls. Slow grounder, Blevins over to first. Jeff Cano, their left fielder, has struggled so far and has a basically non-existent contact bar. And Blacksmith with a beautiful strikeout. So here we go. We're going into the 9th inning. Tied game 3-3. For Virginia, it's the end of their batting order. They have batting 7, 8, and 9. And here we go. It looks like Minnesota's Garner is going to come in. This is a very key situation, so I don't blame them at all. But he's coming in with almost a 50% stamina. But he goes in ahead and gets a quick strikeout. Tucker Ortiz. They're actually going to swap him out with Bartlett. Let's take a look at Bartlett, as we have not seen Bartlett yet in this series. Bartlett is a C-. normally left fielder. He gets struck out quickly too. And now for Virginia, Mendoza up, and they're going to bring in a pinch hitter here for Mendoza as well. Toothsome Gonzalez. The regular season, he had a 2.64, and he had 1 home run. He only came in 33 of their 80 games, though. And at strike 3, wow. That is all I have to say about that pitching performance. Gardner, that was beautiful. So Minnesota, if they can get 1 run here, it will get them into Game 5. And Blacksmith continues his dominance. Whitney struggling on that contact bar again. Blacksmith so far in this series, 0 ERA. Oh, a weird bounce there, but Norton is able to field it. And I was going to say a 0 ERA and 11 strikeouts. That ball, it goes over the third baseman, but goes foul. And that ball is going to get into the field. Minnesota now with a player on. Genevieve Powers stepping up. Speed bar on first is not great. And there we go. That's going to end the inning. So we're going to be going into extra innings here in this game for potential elimination match. For Virginia, they do have the top of their batting order to start things off for them. Gardner, already high in pitch count, and he's not high in pitch count, he's only at 13, but based on the stamina that he came in with, his bars are dropping with every pitch pretty significantly. Virginia, now the player on, 0 outs. Leverage had a great game. Here we go. So Gardner has to be pulled. Dimples Yellow, who we have not seen yet, is a C- relief pitcher. In the regular season, he actually pitched a decent regular season. 7 wins, 4 losses, 3.72 ERA. And he starts things off with a strikeout. Levens has struggled today, but this is the exact moment that you want your best player up. Extra innings to get your team into the round of 8. And she gets a nice hit just over the third baseman. Cano will field it perfectly, not let it slip past him. So now Shipwright, who had a home run already today, steps in with a player on first and second. One ball, 2 strikes. That is popped basically straight up. This should be caught. Doctor does field it. Rodney Craig steps up. Still with a player on first and second. And he gets a beautiful hit. That is going to fall in field, so it's not a home run, but that's going to drive home 2 runs, and that could have just locked Virginia in to the round of 8. Here we go. Yellow is already going to be pulled. Camden Zhang is back in. He already pitched in 2 of the 3 of early games, so he was kind of their last resort. They didn't want to pull him in and extra tire him out, but at this point they are facing elimination. Hardy fields it. Now Minnesota has 3 outs to keep themselves in this tournament. Camille Lamb will be leading off. They need at least 2 runs. Virginia is going to keep in Blacksmith. Even though he's getting tired, he's just such a dominant player. And that will be out 1. Nelson points to the wall. Says, let me get at least 1 home run here. And put the team on my back. Blacksmith strikes him out. Blacksmith might be in the running for MVP of this series. He's going to be pulled here for Adele. Atkins, here we go. Just low. Oh, it comes down potentially to this pitch. Here we go. And they walk Atkins. And that puts Derek Doctor up. Derek Doctor has the power bar. He hit 19 home runs in the regular season. If he's able to crank one out of the park, but he's not. Levens fields it, steps on first, and Virginia locks in their spot in the round of 8 with a 4-0 dominant performance against Minnesota. We'll watch Virginia party it up here, take in their win as they get to the round of 8. We'll then take a look at player of this game and the players of the series. There we are, Virginia with the win. Let's take a look at the box score, pick ourselves MVP of the game. What a crazy game. Extra innings, tons of hits, good scoring all around. In terms of MVP, Shipwright is probably in the conversation. He had a big home run. Cardi had a great game, and the game does not shy away from giving MVP of the game to a player on the losing team, so she could definitely be in the talks. Leverage, while he didn't have any home runs or anything, had a very good performance. Even though it was a relatively high-scoring game, I think that somebody like Blacksmith could definitely take MVP. Only pitched about 3 innings, but talk about a dominant performance. I'll be honest, I think that I would probably give MVP of this game to Blacksmith, but let's see what the game says. Interesting. Okay, so even though Minnesota was eliminated, McCarty got MVP of the game, followed by Lansley, who did have a very good starting performance for Minnesota. And then Blacksmith came in third. So with Minnesota going home, we have to look at players of the series and then say goodbyes to Minnesota. So join me here in 1 second. So here we are in terms of players of the series. And I actually said this towards the end of that game when Blacksmith had such a dominant performance. Blacksmith is deemed player of this series, and I don't disagree. This was a relatively low-scoring series, and he came in 3 different games and pitched lights out every single time. Pitched 7.1 innings, 12 strikeouts, 0 ERA. Incredible performance from him. Then there was Benson, who was one of Virginia's starting pitchers. Pitt Lansley for Minnesota actually comes in here in third. And then Hudson Ocean, who, again, this was a weird series because Minnesota didn't score at all the first two games. So you see all these 0 ERAs. It's true, but it's also a little bit weird how that comes out because Virginia definitely had a great pitching performance, but this is just a dominant pitching performance. Then we finally get to the first batter on this list, which goes to Blevins, who had an incredible game one. I think through the first three games, every time that she got on base, she ended up crossing home. So very good performance from her, followed by Chung, and then we get back here. Norton is the second baseman. He also had a very decent batting performance. Then we had Craig. Sailor McCarty is the only batter from Minnesota that makes this list. And then Fabian Burdock. So with that, we are going to be saying goodbye to Minnesota. Minnesota, the S-rated starting pitcher Fabian Burdock will be going home, along with their other starting pitcher, Harsh Odom, their closer, Killian Garner, and then at the plate, we will no longer be seeing players like Nelson, Atkins, Derek Doctor, Cano, McCarty, Genevieve Powers, and Camille Lamb, among other names that we followed in the past 4 games. So goodbye to Minnesota. Virginia, welcome officially to the round of 8. I'll be seeing you guys for the next series.